So, do you think that one will do? 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 It's funny to think of how differently we can say things and how different the spoken word is from the particular meaning of the words as they could be located in the dictionary. There is a often made distinction between analog communication and digital communication, and I think this is part of what people are trying to get at when they're trying to get at the difference between animal communication and human communication. We share with animals a great degree of analogic communication. That is, analogic communication. That's part of what makes these YouTube videos so fun. They're analogically rich. Here I can, eat a little bit of cereal in front of you, and you can see all kinds of nonverbal richness, a tapestry of continuous, contiguous relations, all sort of bound in a local whole. Those are so different than the discrete distinctions that we find within the continuous, contiguous flow of the spoken word. Now, I suggested that this is part of the key to getting at the difference between animal communication and human communication. I think just take your dog, when you talk to your dog hears the analogic aspects of the communication and relates to the analogic qualities, those particular continuous, contiguous relations. It doesn't relate to the discrete dictionary level of the words. That's why you can walk up to your dog and you walk up to your dog and go, "You're a good dog." The dog is frightened. But you could walk up to it and go, "Ooh, you are such a happy little poop eater, aren't you? You love to eat your poop." And you can make fun of the dog, but with a happy tone, and the dog wags his tail and is happy to be greeted that way. It's mostly the tone of voice. But it's not just tone of voice. John Dewey tells this, and again, a lot of this appears in such great detail in Václav Bevan and Jackson's work. If you go to Dewey's work, his example, one of his really great examples, is the farmer. He goes out and he throws grain at the chickens who are out there picking away at the ground in the yard, and as he throws the feed, every time he throws his hand, they act alarmed. They scatter, and instead of seeing the food as a preparatory event toward the meaning of feeding, every time they sort of react to it instead of seeing it within a larger time frame. I think this question of how is analogic communication a world of installment, a world of concrete engagement, but the digital world, the world of discrete, distinct words that have boundaries between them that we can look up in the dictionary. Now, I said the dictionary a couple of times, and I opened this video with an example of the distinction between the written word and the spoken word. And that may be part of the key to what literacy enables. Literacy seems to enable a very exact attention to the syntactical and grammatical and semantic values of what we say, and it gives it a kind of razor-like precision, but it's empty of all kind of analogic qualities of meaning. And so I think there is a very interesting question of what happens, how do we, in becoming literate and in shaping our own language in the image of literacy, how do we become somewhat machine-like, lose some of our animalistic qualities? How do we, as we have videos with one another here, how are we recovering a kind of rich analogic tapestry, a recovery of the fact that there's more than words going on in the dialogue, that the dialogue itself is constructed by precise words, but it's always unfolding on a rich bed of analogic communication, analogic um, relation states. I mean, I think the way to think about it is to think about that, the analog world is a world that gives more or less, and it doesn't really have the discrete either or. If you think about it, your dog, try to go up to your dog and say, now you can either have a treat or go outside. If you try to do that to your dog doesn't understand an either or decision that way. It doesn't stop and reflect. Instead, it responds to an impending action. Its understanding of the verbal symbol is one of anticipatoriness. It's not one of detached reflection and consideration of either one or the other. That would be, again, a characteristic of digital communication. It's partly a result of digital communication's capacity to syntactically negate. I can, with digital communication, say what something is not. Now, there's no way to do that in the analog world. If anything, in the analog world, there's withdrawal or there's refusal, but you're always only wherever you are. There's no way to be nowhere. And it's sort of like everything just is as it is at the level of the analog communication. Now, part of the problem is that I think we want to get at meaning as if it were in the world, but part of the problem is that the world is ambiguous. I'm looking at a just wonderful piece here. This is by Ellen Langer, and the piece is called Interpersonal Mindlessness and Language, and she's talking about the way that we have what seem to be synonyms for situations, but you can't really say what it is without using language, and then the language itself brings the meaning, and then we act as if the language wasn't doing it. And so look at some of these just as an example. Now, and it's also, there's an evaluation. So if we like someone, right, we may say that they're consistent, but if we don't like them, we say that they're rigid. Now, the exact same pattern of complex behavior could be described one way or the other, and it carries a meaning load from the actual word choice, right? And so when we're haggling, not only is there a haggle over, or take this example, right? If we really like the person, we could take a pattern of behavior and say, look, they're flexible. If we don't like the person, we say, oh, they're inconsistent. And so it has to do with values and the way values play into word choice. But it's not just that. I mean, part of the problem is when we go to YouTube, we don't just have the semantic haggle over what the words mean. It carries over all this parading and attitude and the nonverbal displays that convey analogic meaning. And I think sometimes people are reacting and haggling over that. And so I guess the round out of that story is to get at the difference between human communication and animal communication. We have to take very seriously that we share the bulk of analog communication with other creatures. You understand your dog and your dog understands you, not because your dog speaks language, but because you also have analogic communication. You share the analogic aspect. We have radically distanced ourselves from animals through literacy, and literacy itself has given an objectification to language, but even that, it never escapes. It never fully escapes into a pure or true language. We're always stuck with this, what Korzybski would call this parabola behind the object levels that we see that are also then talked about. And the problem is that the meaning comes, as Ellen Langer here says, the meaning comes from the particular word choices we use. And so it's not as if the thing is there and then we use the word. There's something there, but you can't say what it is without sort of implying a meaning by the particular words that you choose. Okay, thanks.